everybody. You're listening to Carrying Stones and Digging Holes radio show. And I am your host for the day, for the 2 hours here on Saturday. So my last show is going to be on May 9th, 2020, which is next Saturday. So my show is usually on Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern to 3 p.m. Eastern, and Wednesdays at noon Eastern Standard Time to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, Stones and Digging Holes radio show, and you can go to Carrying Stone or Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, and support us, everything that everybody does here, because we are non-corporatized, and we like it that way. So everybody volunteers their time and works endlessly and tirelessly for free, including the management. So we just ask that you help, keep the green, the fiat green creasing our palms, and in multiple ways that you can do that. So you can go to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. We've got a donation button at the top, drop down menu. You can do a donation there. We also have Patreon. You can see that button on the site. You can join that. It's whatever you want to give monthly donation. At the bottom, we have snail mail, checks, or money orders. All the information for that. And then we also have Zazzle.com, RevRad, and you can find T-shirts and mugs and support us that way as well. So we really, really appreciate it. And just to keep, Revolution Radio jamming along in the future. Okay, so I was really thinking this morning about, first thing I'm going to put out there is that my guest and I are going to be doing a 4-week class, and I'm going to be hosting it with Carrying Stones, Digging Holes, weekly online classroom, which I have. Usually I do it on Sunday, but those classes, we're going to do a special Thursday night one. And then I'm going to host it, and we're going to have a discussion about some of the things that we're going to talk about today. So if there's anybody out there that's listening to this and you want to get on my emails because you want to get notified when I put up the information on my website about this class, please contact me at consciousnessofelconomics@gmail.com, or you can go to my website and do a contact page there, which is coe-llc.com. And I've also got another class that I'm teaching during the week that you can join. And also all my classes go up onto Patreon. My other class is 20 Minutes with Bridget, which is healthcare, energy medicine, supplements, nutrition, herbalism, structural stuff, spiritual stuff. So I do a 20-minute with Bridget blurb, and you can look that up. You can join the class for free live. And then also you can go onto Patreon and help me there and see all the classes up there. Okay, so that was what we got. So I was thinking this morning, when I was getting up about, kind of, like how to gear this a little bit today. And so what my guest, Ken Doust, has done is he has done some things that I don't know anybody else that's doing. I know Anna. I know Judge Anna. I've known her since 2010. She helped me with a lot of legal stuff in the state. I have a really good friend of mine who is a retired common law court judge who I do a lot of work with. There's a lot of different, interesting people out there that I've known and met in the common law and type community. But, I was talking to Ken the other day on the phone briefly, and I think that what we have to do is we have to get out of that whole legal law mindset, because either you're going after somebody or somebody's coming after you, and you have to defend your position, right? You have to create a presumption of events of wrongdoing to you, where Ken's not doing that. Ken is we're trying to work with a new language here, and he has a lot of the language worked out. I'm still working a lot of it out, but we have to move into who we are individually first, and then the events that have happened, not to harm us, but because if you knew what was going on and you might take advantage of somebody else, right? Their unknowingness, right? And the whole money system and everything that has been created and generated is off of who we are, right? So we have to get back to who we are, how that's defined, the processes that are using that information, and then, like Ken's been doing, going through the documentation and the paperwork, and actually, filing to allow these people to know and recognize that he is woken up and he knows who he is, and that he is saying, okay, you've had this for a time being, and now I want to have it back. And I also would like to have, hey, I would also like to have, the money also that you've made off me as an individual by creating a lot of these processes, instead of going, I hate the whole system. I'm extracting myself out, and I'm not going to have a driver's license anymore, and I'm not going to have a bank account anymore, and I'm out, right? Instead of going that direction, going into a different direction where it's not personal, it's business. Okay, Ken, can you kind of help me? help me out.
Here. Sorry about that. I had to mute there. So I'm walking the rock. How you doing today? Yeah, no, you did pretty well. You summed up was good. It does summarize things. How's Reno today?
It's cooler, which is nice because it has been scorching hot here for unknown reasons.
Yeah. Well, Nevada. Yeah, it's raining here today, which we need. But what you summed up was pretty good. Yes, it is. It is a new language, and some new words that we need to learn. Some people know the words. There's a few people on my Facebook page that were kind of confused about where this was going, and I mentioned a couple of words, and a couple of people said, now you're talking a language I know. And that language is referred to, goes to metaphysics and ontology and epistemologies, and a new one that I came across a couple of days ago, which is I'm going to post later today, and I would encourage everybody to look at it and read it because it's going to scare the living hell out of you. But it also might jolt you awake into what's really going on here. And this is called the model of everything. It's called the model of everything, and it's patent. And this model of everything encompasses everything that we are, everything that we do. This is what people, when people are talking about.
Did you just say it was a patent? The model of everything, yes. Patent? Okay.
It's a patent, yes. It's a series of patents, actually. And it is referred to as the model of everything. And it refers to, it's very blunt about, it's a long patent. It's 100, well, there's one that's 101 pages, one that's 124, one that's 138, I think, and there's another one under 100 pages. A lot of it's diagrams, okay? I mean, very, very good diagrams, actually. Let me go back and read a couple things off of it. But it should frighten the hell out of everybody, but at the same time, it should really wake everybody up to really what's going on here, really where the concentration needs to be refocused, because it's very blunt, and it talks about us in terms of what they're doing, how they're modeling us into this new world order, so to speak, in a manner that is stealing our identities and cloning us, per se, but it's creating another one of us that is a clone that is being received on another end, like down in the Cayman Islands or in Luxembourg, by the scum buckets, pardon my French, who stole our identity, which is foreign agent law firms and business of banking. And so, I mean, you're right. This does all come down to basic business. And people will say, "Oh, that's corporations. I don't want anything to do with corporations." You know, we got to define our terms here and kind of establish a foundation here of what's true and what's not true, and maybe what's been exaggerated over time or by good-meaning people. Okay, the very good-meaning people over the decades have, developed this idea of what that all capitalized name is, and what corporations are and fictions are, and so on and so forth. And it's not that they're necessarily wrong. I'm not going to say they're wrong. I'm just going to say we need to redefine the terms a little bit and what these terms actually mean. So when we talk about the corporation, the one thing that people are going to have to swallow, I mean, because it's true. You have a lot of people out there that want to check out the system, right? And we were talking about this the other day, that do everything they can to check out the system, but they don't have a pot to piss in at the end of the day. But they can go out to a cop and flip them off and do what they want to do because they've separated themselves from the system, right? But they haven't got nothing. And what have they done? They've isolated themselves, and they said, I don't want to be part of a corporation. I'm not a corporation. I'm not going to be a part of it. I don't want anything to do with it. And what do? They separate themselves, right? But at the same time, what they try to do is they say, oh, well, you owe me my birth account, right? What you got to realize is if it wasn't for the corporation, you would have no value to that birth account. It is the energy that is our energy, of course, that's creating the value, but the value that is created and put to that is by the corporation. We are by all rights and intents stockholders in the corporation, not just one corporation, but in dozens of corporations. We hold stock in GM. We hold stock in Ford. We hold stock in the United States corporations. We hold stock in so many different places that make your head spin. And they did that by hiding it from us, by hiding that the value of those intellectual properties. And I think what the dividing line really is on this is Social Security. I think that's the dividing line in all this stuff, because what do they do? You hear people talk about the birth certificate and that it's the value of what we're going to earn over a lifetime, right? I mean, that's how I've heard it, one characterization. You've heard the same too, right, Bridget?
Yeah. But the other thing too is that I think the key here has a lot to do with that these systems were created to create money systems and values and energy and power.
Right.
And
well,
that
it comes from somewhere, right?
Inevitably,
right?
They belong to us.
Right. Right. Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing I said to you the other day. I think you made a comment. Oh, okay. I didn't think of it like that before, or something. You made a comment, something along those lines, and that was this. That was that. That birth certificate would not exist if it was not for Bridget's first breaths as an infant. That created that birth certificate. The birth certificate was created because of the infant proved to be living, meaning that it was capable of breathing on its own. And that's what issued that birth certificate. So if you were not born living, that birth certificate and that all capitalized name would have never come into existence whatsoever. You created it. And
right. So,
thereby, you have all rights to it.
Yeah, one of the things I was thinking about, like, how do you give somebody like a verbal visual on that? Well, it would be like you build a building, right? Then you plug the building in. Let's just say it's a building that harnesses energy or power, right? Mm-hmm. And then you plug it in. It takes in its first energetic breath. It's living. And then now you can connect all kinds of houses and properties and all kinds of other stuff to it, and power generate it, and which will inevitably create money or revenue or other resources. And so
right.
each baby, each individual is a power source that they don't understand quite, all the way, that there has been a birth certificate created on that power source so that it can be utilized, we can be utilized individually to create resources and revenues and businesses and companies and fiat. And it would even creates the, monetary hold of what gold would be valued at, right? So it also creates the baseline value of all other things that have a value or revenue amount attached.
Now, here's the one thing about that, to add to that. Because the soul is created, it's a creation of the universe. It was created before we ever got here. Before even God contemplated our existence. We exist. The soul is part of the universe. It just got allocated a name, right? And that name was separated from us when we were born through that birth certificate. And what you got to look at this thing as, and when we talk about business, we're not saying that you have to become a businessman. I don't want you to become a businessman unless you want to be. If you want to be a secured party creditor, just to note, you can do that. But understand this: if you go that route, you can't do it the way you're doing it now. You have to become a practitioner. Okay, that's a key word: practitioner of patents and trademarks, which means that you're going to have to become proficient in how to operate patents and trademarks. We'll go into that a lot later. But just to mention that, you can be a secured party creditor, but you have to do it by the way that this new system is operating. The better way to do it is to say, well, you know what? Because that all capitalized name is Sol's Energy, it is what in some terms in patents is referred to as the constant dollar value, meaning that its value never diminishes, but it'll have a set value for certain things. So in other words, if there's a bond program, say a municipal bond program, let's say it's a stadium, you build a stadium, okay, and who's funding that stadium? Who do you think's putting the money into that? It's us. It's us that's putting the money in that. We're put on a customer list. That customer list is sold in the bond market, and bonds are issued. And but the true value of that is from us. We're generating that value. Now, for each, say the bond program is capped at, I don't know, say $100 million, and there's 10,000 in bonds or whatever. Okay, whatever number you want to pick. Okay, that's a cap on it. That means that's constant dollar value. But that doesn't mean that I'm extinguished. No, I can go over to I could be funding this bond program, this stadium here in Portland. At the same time, I could be funding a soccer stadium down in Istanbul or Istanbul or somewhere else because they cut us up into so many different pieces.
Yeah. All they have to do is they give you a different account number, or they create a different account number and pull a bond on you, and sometimes a life insurance policy as well.
Not sometimes, they always full of life
well,
insurance.
Yeah, always. But in case you die, then they can get double revenue, triple revenue. But the other thing, too, is a friend of mine used to say that we're the original depositor. Yes. So when we took our first breath, we were the original deposit, and we're infinite and unlimited resource and value through the course of our life. And they even create revenue off of, if you look at anymore, you look at the death certificate, it's actual stock certificate.
Yes. Yep. Yes, it really. Well, no, it represents it. It's not the actual security paper. It's like it mimics a security paper. But yes, it is. You're right. It is. Everything's a security. Everything is. Anything that your name is on, anything that your father's name on, your mother's name is on, is a security. It becomes a security the minute that your name's written down on that. Okay, and this is because of some new things that came into existence in the last 20 years, and that was with the revisions to UCC 9. Very important to understand that. UCC 9 is all about intellectual properties. What kind of intellectual properties? Patents, trademarks, copyrights. Okay, well, what the hell are those things? Well, the copyright, the original copyright, see, your name is not a copyright. You cannot copyright your name. You can copyright a document, okay, that your name is on, but you can't copyright your name per se. Okay, and people are trying to do that. And that was, 20 years ago, you could file a common law copyright and a trademark and, get away with filing it in your county and filing it to a poster board, like posting it somewhere in a public location. You can't do that anymore because the system doesn't operate that way anymore. That was when we were dealing with human beings to human beings. Okay, that system's gone. What happened in the last 20 years, which nobody's really told you about, although you know it happened because it's on your phone. It's on everything you do is automated. Okay, everything. Well, they did the same thing with the economy. They took the human element out of this thing and created a system of rules that were built in to a platform that artificial intelligence makes decisions and forecasts on. Okay, and that's where we're stuck in, and that's where we're in. So what they've done is they've stolen our identity. Now, you got to understand something. When Britain's talking about the value of energy and the monetary value of this stuff, that is something that's been going on for centuries. That's the metaphysics behind all this stuff. Those are the things that have been financing society and putting money in these the pockets of the Roman Congress or whatever it was, Senate. Okay, that was ontologies that were doing that, and metaphysics that was doing that. And what these are just little fictional stories, but they're not fictional stories. What they are is they're a system of economic value, that builds society, that builds your houses, that builds your manufacturing plants, that builds everything, that grows society. So that birth certificate.
Yeah. So the other thing too is, so just to throw something out there, but
Good.
I did when I was doing work with Victor and Mike, who are big Tartarian guys, and they actually have changed the face of history. And they have like a library of maps and star forts, a lot of these things that people didn't know. And so they did a lot of reading and going back into information. That's how I got across the book Babylon's Bankers by Joseph B. Farrell. And he talks about how a lot of these, what they would have done is they would have had a star fort. The star fort would have been able to harness power and energy from the water, from how it was designed. They even there's even been 300, 400, 800-year-old gas pipelines that have been found under these places. So we've had ability to move through the air a lot longer than people think. But anyway, it was a power generator. Well, then what they would do later on, in order to harness that, because they wanted to control it, they would create these cross-looking churches right next to them, because they found out that the architectural design of that could pull in and harness all the power, which means that the church would be controlling the power. So it has nothing
And what
really.
What would you call that symbol?
It's a plus or a plus sign.
Well, okay, but what would you call it? You'd call it what? A trademark?
Oh, yeah, trademark. So anyway, I have videos on my website and them showing me all of these different things, and us having a 3-hour conversation about it. Was just so mind-blowing. And you can even see how it went from being able to harness power and energy from a natural scape to a built one, like Star Fort, where they started building the Star Forts with walls and stuff like that, where you can start to see the control, and then into digital. And some of these Star Forts, you can see that they went from the actual building material, and now it's a digital. And a lot of these maps that we looked at now look like the inner parts of your computer if you take it all apart. It looks like a circuit board. So from the sky, a lot of the stuff on ground looks like circuit boards. So they've actually turned us into, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, paperwork, every avenue, into moving us into more and more of a digital
right. And they claim everything from the center of the earth all the way up to the space and universe above. So that's what we got to take back. Now, people are probably scratching their heads thinking, what the hell are they talking about? Okay, here's the thing. You've got, here's what Bridget mentioned at the beginning. There's a way to beat these guys. Believe it or not, there's a way to beat these guys. There's a way to beat the pharmaceuticals. There's a way to beat those cloud, what do you call those things about? Cloud trails. Not cloud trails.
Chemtrails.
What?
Geoengineering. Yeah.
The what?
Geoengineering or chemtrails.
No. The cloud trails above.
Chemtrails.
Raytheon does that. We can stop that stuff if we concentrate our efforts into the right area, because we're financing all the chemicals that they're pouring on us. We don't know it. And how are they doing that? Where are they getting that money from? Where are they getting that value from? They're getting it from trademarks and patents, because that's where the value is created, is within patents and trademarks, through our name, okay, through a customer list. Now, some people get confused and they're trying to understand this stuff, but they want to go and get a trademark all of a sudden and trademark your name. Well, that's good and that's fine and dandy if you're Kenneth Cole or a Gloria Vanderbilt, but you're not. I mean, if you are, great, wonderful. I mean, that's your business, but most of us are not. Okay, what they did here, here's the sneak thing that they did to us. In 1999, there are a couple of things, really, that brought this about. 1998 was a State Street ruling when the court ruled that automated business methods were patentable, which I think is a bunch of bullshit, and they kind of retracted from that since, and actually have retracted from it totally with the Alice Party Corporation v. I forgot the name, some bank, I don't remember what bank it was, but by saying that this is all abstractions are not patentable. So they really have basically wiped out all the patents. But because none of us are looking at patents, we don't use this ruling. But anyhow, so you had State Street ruling in 1998. You had 2001. You had the UCC 9 revisions, and you had the OCC's 2001 preemption and deregulation, and then most important of all, there's something called the 1999 International Trademark Treaty Law, I believe is what it's called. And what this is, it's an international law that says that anybody can take your trade name, your all-capitalized trade name, without informing you of it. And that's what they did. Now, because none of us know anything about trademarks, and because we're not in business, right? We're consumers. We're a finished product, right? We go to this grocery store, we pick finished products off the shelves of the grocery store, and bring it home to our house and put it on our shelves. We're consumers. That's not the way they look at us. Because of UCC 9, they said, we can take this birth certificate one step further, and we don't even have to touch the birth certificate. We could take everybody's public personality, which is your first, middle, initial, and last name, which is the name that was created, that the second you created that W-4, the second you signed that W-4 form, to go back in time to when you were like 16 years old, or when you first took a job and entered the job market. Mine was with McDonald's of all places, and I filled out the W-4 form, and we created that derivative when it asked middle initial instead of middle name. We put our middle initial down. Guess what? We just created that derivative person. Okay, that's our public personality. Okay, that comes with signatures and the all-capitalized name. Now, the all-capitalized name is what people think is theirs and not ours. It's not. That's not the case. It is ours for the reasons why we talked about with the birth certificate. Because that birth certificate name, that all-capitalized name, would not exist if it was not for our first breath, so too is a derivative, by extension, correct? And so that derivative name was created from the original copyrighted document, certificate of birth. That's a derivative work for hire. Key word there, work for hire. Now, up until, I'd say about 20 years ago, maybe 2003 was the last mortgage. Up until that point in time, when you sat down and signed a mortgage loan, it was actually a mortgage loan. It really was a mortgage loan. You had ownership. And they would take these things and bundle them up as a whole package, and sell them off to investors as a whole package, with change of title and bills of endorsement and bills of sale and everything recorded in the county, right? Putting MERS on this thing, they snuck one past us. They took that Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac uniform instrument, and they created a derivative work for hire. So what they did was they converted all of us to commercial business objects, our trade name. And because of UCC 9, all of a sudden, the value of our name definitely became invaluable. And it's easily proven on the embodiment, patents, and trademarks. Once you come to understand this stuff, you'll see it. And you'll see, holy crap, we are truly invaluable. And because of UCC 9, what were they able to do? Decompose our name, decompose our property into different notes, bonds, riders, all kinds of different investments, and sell them in jurisdictions all across this country, all across the world. I mean, scattering us all over the world. I can tell you right now that every single one of us has residency. We don't know it. It's anonymous, but we have residency in Luxembourg. We have accounts down in the Cayman Islands. We're in Singapore. We're in Japan. We're in Belgium. We're in England, of course. We're in Canada. We're in almost every country that's out there. Okay, and how did they do that? They did that because they were able to rehypothecate our name and create. Now, it is a fiction. It is fiction in the sense that it's not reality per se, but it is reality because it affects our lives. So what they're doing by rehypothecation and by controlling our name, this is why you can never win in court, because you're not dealing with a mortgage loan. You're dealing with some asshole attorney who has control and has taken ownership of your name. He's impersonating you, is what he's doing. They're impersonating us. And on the other side of that is umpteen amounts of your name, to businesses, to stocks, to bonds, to everything, okay? Because that's what they're doing. They're just taking our name and they're saying, okay, let's put it on a customer. Let's go over the business. Let's call it computer share. Let's call it some kind of trading exchange. This is all Merrill Lynch's concoction, okay? Let's call it some kind of trading exchange or something, and that's where we're going to bring buyers and sellers together. And what are we going to do? We're going to trade customer lists. Okay, these customer lists are what? They're your name, your trade name, put on a list. Maybe it's a loan list or a letter of bailment or a warehouse list of goods, maybe something of that nature. And what are they doing? That customer list is connected to the trademark goods, products, and services of Ocwen or GM or Ford or pick any industry you want, really. And so that's how they got us into this thing, through that 1999 trademark treaty law, by being able to take our trade name, putting it on the customer list, and connecting it to another's trademark. That make sense?
Yeah. So, I was thinking about number one, if somebody's listening who's involved in this stuff, on the knowing side, say you're an attorney or whatever else, I could just see like the donut falling out of your mouth this morning.
Yeah.
That we're on to you. The
sad thing about that is, though, a lot of these attorneys don't even know it. They don't even know it.
No, it's just business as usual. But,
right.
One of the things that I've been really, working on the last couple of years trying to teach people is that we don't live in a 3D, 4D. We're not moving to 5D. We live in a 2D. We live in a duality and a polarity, because this is what everything around us supports, good versus bad.
Right. Logical and illogical.
Well, and it's a drama trauma, because the seesaw has to go up and down, right? You're never taught to have balance. And so this is where we get stuck. So we either like one way or the other. We really like it or we really don't like it, and we wage war against it instead of starting to embrace it as a wholeness and starting to look at it from all different kinds of perspectives. Because if they can duality us and polarity us with what they're doing, the reality that they've been able to create to kind of keep us confused and asleep and docile.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned this because I ended up, I really want to learn more about Kabbalah, right? The Kabbalah symbols, which they also have to deal with money. And I ended up going to the synagogue, and later on they wanted me to, become Jewish, and I wasn't really into that. But I studied from this guy who was like world renowned in it here in Reno. And I realized like most people are going to look at it as a one dimension symbol, like written on something, right?
Right. Yes.
But the key to take this symbol is when you take it to in your mind and you take it to a third dimensional.
Yes.
And you sit and you walk around it in your mind, looking at every aspect of and all sides of it as a third dimensional symbol or a tool. And so then what you do is you learn how to spin it. And once you start,
Bridget, you're doing good. Keep going.
Once you start spinning it in your mind's eye, each one of them have doorways that they open. So we're looking at everything one-dimensionally when we should be looking at it as three-dimensional, and then we should be able to utilize it in a multi-dimensional way.
Right. What we're doing is we're just seeing ourselves, and we're saying that we're an individual, we're a man or we're a woman. But there is the fact that there's that thing out there, that thing that we're connected to. And what is that thing? That's all capitalized name. That's the soul. That's the logical form that they took from us. Okay, that exists out there. That's the hardest thing for people to grasp. When you grasp that, when you start to grasp it, it takes some effort. It really does. Some people it take a little bit longer than others. I mean, Bridget's right. You have to be able to visualize this in your mind. You have to. It's almost like playing a video game, really, in your head. It really is. And that you're part of that video game. Not only are you part of it, but you funded that video game. You're marketing that video game, and you're bringing in the revenue from that video game. But in all aspects. So you got to look at this thing from your mind's eye, from an imaginary point of view, from a phantasm. They call it phantasm. Okay, it exists. Now, is it real? No, it really isn't. But if you think about it for a minute, when we're cattle, we talk about us being cattle, and we're transported on rolling stock, which is what, by railroads, by rail car. Okay, there's a storyline here. There's an underlying storyline here that really does make sense. Okay, it really does, because society has to function somehow, okay? And if we're to credit and then the value for everything, well, then they're going to take from me to finance a railroad or finance a development of a car or whatever, or a widget, for God's sake, or a pharmaceutical, They're not gonna use my name all the time. They're gonna put me on a customer list, and they're gonna call me. They're gonna put it on into the labor pool, into the banking system, and it's gonna be given value. But where's that value come from? It comes from us, and everything. So this is why
it comes from
cattle.
The original deposit, the first breath,
yes.
And then it's attached line by line by line and connected to other copies, rights, other trademarks,
yes.
And it's just so you said something. I just want to go back over this.
Okay.
Because it went right through, and it was very, very significant.
Okay.
So, rolling stock train. Does that mean like cars are rolling stock as well? And then what is it? Flying stock by airplanes? I mean, how does that?
Well, you got different means of transport and transportation. Now, in terms of domestically here, what we are is we're an accommodating party. We are a special purpose vehicle, okay? And because we do not have any idea of this thing that's out there, we keep on to say that's a corporation, and I don't want to be a part of that. That's fiction, and that's theirs, and that's not ours. Well, because we do that, and because we haven't faced the reality of what this thing really is, there's people out there called futures commissions brokers, which is Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Center Smith is one of them. Okay, and what they're doing is they're controlling it's kind of like looking at if you're at a switchyard or an air traffic control tower, you've got all the traffic that's before you. You're looking at the traffic, you're guiding traffic. It's the same thing that they're doing for us, okay? Because they're protecting the security. That's us. Because we don't realize that how valuable we are. So we've got these other people that are doing it, and they're transporting us across the country from warehouse to warehouse, customer list to customer list, or Bailey letter to warehouse receipt, right? And so it's literally like somebody said before, a big switchboard of a map, and they're transporting us as an accommodating party. And that accommodating party is the federal public money. Well, what is federal public money? That's our credit. That's being given to the states that we're transporting. Well, we're not transporting it. They're transporting it for us as futures commissions brokers, and we're just a common carrier. That's where your ordinary driver's license comes in. That's not what we want to be. What we want to be is we want to utilize our. You talked about it earlier. You mentioned it earlier, but when you talk about energy, yes, we want to harness our energy. Right now, what they have is they're harnessing our potential energy. What does that mean? That means that maybe one day Bridget will figure it out, or Ken will figure it out, or somebody will figure it out that they are the energy, that we're fooling them, that they're everything, they're the value of everything. Maybe one day they'll figure it out, and if they do that, then it's kind of like you have two sides of the substrate. One side's say your body, right, your living body. The other plate is your soul in the form that they've abstracted, which is the all capitalized name. What we want to do is we want to merge those together. That creates a nuclear energy, nuclear power. That is our own energy plant. That's what we want to do. See, what they've done is they've come in and they've inserted themselves in between the uppercase and the upper lowercase name, the signature, and the all uppercase. Now everybody says, okay, well, I got common law protections. You know what? Common law is English law, right? Common law is English law. When you signed that mortgage loan, what did you do? You signed below a typed all caps name, did you not? Did you not do that? What does that infer? That infers. What does that infer? That infers that you did it with body and soul. You did it consciously, fully aware and fully informed of what you were doing. right? And you did it with there's no interference between that, is there? But we didn't look at it that way because we didn't understand that what they're doing here. So when I represent it in my documents, I'll represent it as when I'm talking about common law, trade name, and common law use, rights of use, and ownership, and all those things that come with that. I'll represent it as Kenneth W. Dust, upper lowercase / Kenneth W. Dust, all uppercase. Well, there's a problem with that. There's an inherent problem with that. What is it? That people can lie, right? People can lie, and people can come in between that. Because by all rights, I do have common law rights of use. And in the trademarks, and all the agreements and trademarks and patents, it agrees with me. As a matter of fact, it makes a point of saying that I am the owner of all rights, title, and interest to this all capitalized name, and I have a right to give it to whoever I want to and do whatever I want with it. But for the fact that I decided to pledge and grant and give it to attorneys. Okay, so that's a turnaround there. So that's where they get in between us. So what we want to do is we want to say, well, wait a second here. No, wait a minute. We're done with this. We're done with this maritime crap, this British Commonwealth crap. Okay, because when we were born, that birth certificate was created. What it really technically is called an industrial property. Okay, an industrial property means that we are a factor of production. This is the financing end of everything. This means that we're the credit provider. It's the all capitalized name that funds these things, that creates the capital, that produces the equity, okay, that we're entitled to have a share of. That's what they stole from us, okay? Now, this is all underneath what's called the 1883 Paris Industrial, I see if it's right now, Paris Industrial Properties Protection Convention, which the United States is a member of, a member nation of. Okay, this is the important part here. Under that union of member nations, the United States is known as the American Union, which is, and here's the most important part of it, which is the inseparable United States of America. When they created that birth certificate, they shipped us overseas, essentially, under the American Union to attach us to this Paris Convention, right? But they didn't do that, though, because we were snagged. We were snagged by maritime. We were snagged by the British Commonwealth and the pirates and thieves. So they've been holding us hostage. So that's where your vessel comes in, okay? And yes, we are lost at sea, but we got to take that one step further. What does that really mean in the abstract? What that means in the abstract is that it's a vessel without a navigator. Okay, there's no navigation on it. It's just bouncing around out there. Actually, the ship's been taken all over the place. We're kind of just bouncing around in the sea out there and just not knowing what the hell's going on. We're not dead, okay? You got to get past that idea of we're dead. We're not dead, okay? They may see us as being dead after 7 years, but even that's not true. What they see us as is they only see the non-human, all capitalized name. Why? Because we never came forward to say, hey, wait a second here. I'm going to take navigation in my vessel. I'm going to take that navigation in my vessel, and because I'm an American, not a citizen, because I'm an American, and because I'm housed over in the American Union, I am protected underneath the Paris Convention. That is what? The inseparable United States of America, which means what? That means that you're brought back where you were born, on the soil. That's how we get back on land, and that's how we get out of Commonwealth. Because here's the thing about this union that we're talking about between between our names. The union, the common law union, isn't talking about any kind of union of body and soul. Excuse me. It's talking about the union between England and Ireland, England and Scotland. That's what they've got us in. I know I'm throwing a lot of stuff out at you. And
yeah, no, you're good. So,
yeah,
no worries. You're good. I mean, like I was telling people before, we're going to be doing a 4-week class, the Carrying Stones and Digging Holes online classroom. Once I get it up on the website, COE-LLC, or you can email me at consciousness-of-economics@gmail.com and get on the list. And then once I get it uploaded onto the computer, I can send you a link for the class that Ken is going to do. We're going to do, which is going to be really exciting. It's probably going to be on the Thursday evening. We don't know exactly when, but it'll be on sorting this out, right? That's going to be sorting a lot of this stuff out. But the one thing that I really liked about Ken, when I first kind of met him and I was first kind of looking at his stuff, And I had to have him on my show several times before I could really kind of understand what he was getting at. But it's something that I wanted to do. So, in the whole common law thing, I decided, extrapolating myself out of the system was going to be more detrimental than, working within the system. So I had been trying to figure out with other people how to develop paperwork to kind of bridge both sides, right? And how to pull them together. And then I met Ken, and I really appreciated the fact that he wasn't willing. This all started over his mortgage in 2009 when the banks were foreclosing. So he
actually
had
started back in 2001 with me.
yeah, okay.
2001, but it was a bank though, and it was a mortgage.
Yeah, so he had to learn all this stuff, traveling down all these different rabbit holes, looking at all this information and putting it together. And he was not willing to allow his value to go. He did not want to pull himself out of the system so that, he injures himself physically more by being poor, not being able to drive a car, doing all these things. I mean, he could do them if he wanted to, but he's might get in trouble, with the system because, you're using, you're driving under the all caps, you're the bank account under the all caps. So what I really appreciate about him was that he decided he was going to go after all of this stuff, figure out how he could just let them know, hi, I know that you've, thought I was lost at sea, but I'm back, and just putting you on notice that, I am taking over driving the ship. And, oh, I noticed that, you added some stuff to my ship, right? You added a new cargo hole. Oh, and you filled it up with a bunch of gas. Oh, and you put some solar panels on it. Oh, and you insured it. And I just like to let you know that I would like to have that money in my own bank account in my pocket now.
Yeah, you stole my prize and pig, and I want it back. I mean, it's really that simple.
Yeah,
it really is that simple. And going along the lines of, let me just interject something for a second. Going along the lines you're going. Now, I did a package a couple of years ago, and I spent about a year on this package. And I did the package with the case law and everything, and it was about 40-page packet, and it had a bunch of documents on it, a certificate of authority, it's the ecclesiastic nation under God, power of attorneys, notice of terminations, declaration of treaty and peace, all this stuff, the recipient's signatures and surety, and so on and so forth. Okay, and I sent this out to 30 or 40 departments heads, Mnuchin, Department of Labor, all the agencies, right? I got totally ignored on it. Okay, totally ignored. Now there are people that want to go after these heads of these agencies, with the expectation that these people are going to do something for us. They're not going to do anything for us. They can't do anything for us. Even if they wanted to do something for us, they can't. Their hands are kind of tied because of non-disclosure agreements, number one. And number two is that we don't have the standing to tell them what to do, because we haven't done the one thing that we need to absolutely positively do. Now, 20 years ago, that would be the common law trademark and copyright and trade name. Okay, but nowadays it's totally different. It's easier, actually. Nowadays, we got to get ourselves in existence first. We've got to take back all those powers of attorney, get rid of all those powers of attorney and all those intermediaries that are controlling us. Because you got to look at it this way. Here's what happened with that mortgage. When we signed that mortgage loan, we thought we're getting ownership. No, we weren't. What they did is there was a hidden contract attached to that Fannie and Freddie document that they didn't tell us about. And that was the real transaction. What is the real transaction? A real transaction is a taking of mortgage in our trade name in intellectual properties. So when you try to track down your title or to change a title within the county records, you get nowhere. You get nowhere. You know why? Because it's not a mortgage loan of real property. They're filing everything with the patents and trademarks. That's where everything goes through, and that's the cruel secret that they've withheld from us. And so what we're doing here is we're saying, wait a second here. You took my public personality, okay, into your private for not only for your unjust enrichment, but to control me and to drive me into the ground. Now I accept the fact that I am responsible for my actions, and I am. For my whatever decision I make is my free will decision. This is what freedom and liberties are. This is what freedom and liberties are supposed to be. Is you make your bed and you lay in it, right? And you're responsible for that thing. Okay, but what happens when somebody else comes in and rustles up my bed that I've had nothing to do with, and I have to pay the price for that thing? What happens? Because that all capitalized name is what? It's rated, it's graded, it's classed. It controls us, right? They control what kind of credit we get, our access to credit and everything. See, this is this is why we have every frickin' right in the world to go after this. It's because you took what was mine, what I'm responsible for, which is this is different from the birth name, okay? Put the birth name aside. The birth name is a total different thing, okay? That's the foundation. That's the vessel for this thing, the foundation for it. But this is different. This is my public personality. This is my freedoms and liberties, how I go through life. And if I fuck up, I make the mistake and I pay for it. But when you do that and you interject yourself, you control life, and that's the problem. That's how I first got into this, because this happened in 2001 with U.S. Bank. Right after the ink had not even dried on the OCC's enacting of preemption and deregulation. And in a nutshell, what that was, and nobody paid attention to it. You know why? Because of 9/11. Our attention was focused on 9/11 and the war on terror, and I still say that this was perfect stage for not seeing this, because people should have been outraged over what happened with the OCC, because what they did was they stripped away all fiduciary duties. This is what this is all about. Everything that this is about is they took away any fiduciary duty that we had with as an agent of ours, and we gave everything to attorneys through a hidden contract. We have
about a minute and a half left.
Okay.
So,
all right, let me finish one point with this on the documents. What they did, look at it this way. If there's 100 million mortgages out there with MERS attached to it, there is probably about, maybe a couple thousand, 10,000 maybe, I don't know what the number is, but it's very small, people, attorneys that are controlling us. They have complete control over us. The reason why there is no supply chain, and the reason why there's no public health system, and we're finding this out now, right? We're finding out how shitty this system really is, because nothing's there. It was supposed to be there. The reason why it's not there is because of attorneys. Because of these hidden contracts and trademarks and agreements that when these manufacturers, these hospitals, these doctors sign these agreements for PP&E or whatever, ventilators or whatever, they weren't taking possession of it. They were given all rights, title, and interest to a nominated agent, an attorney.
So we're on break.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
We're going to hear the promos somebody's playing for us. But let's go to break. We'll be back in about 5 minutes. So just mute out, hang out, and we'll be back.
Listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Hello, my name is Mr. Rowe. I am the host of Reality Extraction. Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I utilize logic, intellect, and magic to methodically autonomize, vivisect, analyze, examine, study, scrutinize, and extract an essence of reality from a fog of illusion and confusion. You can find me on Studio B every Thursday at 1700 hours Pacific Time. That's 8 p.m. Eastern. No topic taboo, no subject too strange. I strive to take a neutral standpoint during the dissection of the topic at hand. That's Reality Extraction with Mr. Rowe on Revolution Radio.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Transcending time and space, let us take you to the place inside your mind where thoughts divide and mysteries unwind. Join us every Monday evening right here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And you will catch the Fenton Perspective with our great host, Lorian Fenton. Come listen in as she shares her amazing stories from the past to present, along with all of her guest secrets to the future. That's the Fenton Perspective every Monday evening right here from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Revolution Radio. Oh, and you don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Anarcho-syndicalist commune. We take it in turns to act as a sort of executive officer for the week. Yes. But all the decisions of that officer have to be ratified at a special bi-weekly meeting. Yes, I see. By a simple majority in the case of purely internal affairs. Be quiet. But by a 2/3 majority in the case of more... Be quiet. I order you to be quiet. Look, you stupid bastard, you've got no arms left. Yes, I have. Look. It's just a flesh wound.
I don't believe I've seen such a display of courage, skill, nerve, grace, and stupidity.
I'll do you for that. Oh, what? Come here. What are you going to do, bleed on me? I'm invincible. You're a loony. The Black Knight always triumphs.
Roundtable Live, Monday through Friday, 1 a.m. till 4 a.m. Eastern Time. Bring your mind, bring your ideas, bring your voice. King Arthur had nothing on us here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. All right, thanks for listening while we took that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And now we're going to get back to your host.
All right, everybody. It is the second hour of Carrying Stones and Digging Holes radio show. I'm your host, Bridget Lynn Dolgoff. And hey, Mr. Jimmy Jean. All right, so my guest today, Ken Scott. I'm sorry, that's another Ken, another law person, another in the common law. But we're to get today with Ken Dost, and we're talking about copyright, trademarks, our spirits, our soul, our value, who we are, what's been going on with who we are. Getting control of the driving mechanism of our own ship. And, so what was I going to say? Oh, yeah, donations. Got to do the donations. So please go to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And we have several ways that you can donate. We need your donations. We have lots of stuff that, needs to happen and move forward here at Revolution Radio. And you can do 3 ways of donating on our website, and you can do the donation button at the top. It's a drop-down menu. We have a Patreon. You can decide how much you want to give us monthly, and then at the bottom we have snail mail that you can send a money order or check to. So, everything we do here, we all volunteer our time and do the best we can to bring you the best information, and our management works endlessly, and they work for free. A lot of them have full-time jobs other than Revolution Radio, and Revolution Radio is a full-time job for a lot of people that's unpaid. So you can just go there and help us out. That would be great. So back with Ken Dost, and I just one of the things that also that I just want to say before we start off into the second hour is that watching, Ken go through these processes, and, as he makes these, figures things out, and he files his paperwork, and he gets a response, and then he moves on to the next thing as he goes down the rabbit hole. And like you said, a lot of these people who are involved in this have been trained in the educational systems and or trained by their companies, and they don't really know what they're involved in for the most part. And the second thing is that a lot of them have signed NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, which means, they can't really discuss this stuff. They can't really give you advice if you call their office, you're trying to figure something out. So, it's a lot of work that has to be done and a lot of, self-study. But the one thing that Ken has helped me with is that not to take any of it personally, that's a business, that, you just got to find the right paperwork, right? And then, let them know that you are wide awake and submit your paperwork, and then they'll respond to it, and then slowly reclaim, instead of removing yourself from the system, reclaim you being the driver of your own vessel.
You're basically ejecting yourself from the system. You're doing a self-ejection, and that self-ejection is this: when you merge.
But not a common law ejection where you leave all of your value that's being created in the system. You take your value with you.
Well, we are doing something with that value. We're not going to take all that value. We don't want it. We don't want it for a couple of reasons. We want to give it to Treasury because that's a patriotic thing to do. Because here's the thing. You're right. A lot of government employees have no clue what's going on. They're just as dumbed down. They're incompetent. They're actually incompetent, really. It's because they believe that a mortgage loan is still a mortgage loan. A person that defaults on a mortgage loan is a deadbeat liar and cheat. Well, they're not. That doesn't make them bad people. That just makes them indoctrinated by the government that they work for and by the training manuals that they're operating the technology through. So what happens here is they've been indoctrinated to take technology at face value. And a lot of times, in a lot of cases, the technology tells them what to say. When you talk to Aquin or you talk to AutoSource or Litton, do you think that person that you're talking to is actually speaking to you from their mind? No, they're speaking to you. They're reading back to you what is being what comes across their screen that is being interpolated by artificial intelligence by the words you're saying and spitting out the response that these services are supposed to say to you. So they're not even thinking. So you guys, so the human element has been indoctrinated by technology. The same thing with government employees. They've been trained because who's the people who are integrating all these systems on the government servers? It's attorneys. It's attorneys. This is a coup d'état. Attorneys, the foreign agent attorneys in the British Commonwealth conducted the ideal coup d'état without firing a single shot, and they did it at the ground level with this technology. And of course, as technology goes through, like I just said, people just read what's in front of their screen. That's it. So to me, it's wrong to go after and attack government employees and as being the crooks and so on and so forth. Some of them are. That's not to say they're not. The judges are. I'm certainly some sheriffs are. But the employees themselves, these people need to be educated because they're not. They're just doing what they're told. In the same vein, the public needs to be educated into understanding what the ontological truths are, logical truths are, the three truths are. And the truths are that what you see around you is a complete deceptive lie. What they've done here is they've turned public policy on its head, and they've turned common sense on its head. Because for decades, right, when your parents' mortgage loan, their parents' mortgage loan was what? It was a mortgage loan. It was an actual mortgage loan and they had ownership of that house. Unless they defaulted, then they would lose that house. Which I agree, they should. Anybody who defaults on a mortgage loan should lose their house. If it was 20 years ago. See what they did here? They did a very good trick here. It's what's the movie? The Usual Suspects. Remember you're talking about with Kaiser Sosa, and remember that movie?
No, I don't think I saw that movie. Mm-mm.
Okay, but it was Kaiser Sosa was a figure in that movie that was very elusive. I forgot who was the I can't think of the actor offhand, but there's a quote in there that talks about the one thing that the devil did. It was try to convince people that he didn't exist. And that's what they're doing here. What they're trying to do is they're trying to convince us that we have ownership, that we have mortgage loan, and if we default on that, then we deserve to lose our house. We are deadbeats, liars, and cheats. But here's what we got to stop and think. This is where we're going to stop, right where we're at, and say, wait a second here. No, that's not true. What they did was they converted us to a work-for-hire, commercial work-for-hire, took ownership away from us, and turned us into a lease. Now, what does that mean? That means that we're the lender of the collateral value. We're the investor. We are the credit provider. We are everything in this thing. But until we realize that, that's the whole rub on this whole thing. They convinced us.
Right, and I think the big thing, when I had first gotten kind of in, like seriously involved with common law, like around 2009, because a lot of stuff going on. I was in a really charged emotional state because the state was coming after me and making all these accusations and accusing me and trying to get me in contract, right, so that they could control me over my private practice. And I refused. And so they made my life super hard on me for about 4 years, probably the scariest, most horrifying, terrifying period of my entire life. But going that direction, to, you did this to me, and, starting to find all those rabbit holes about the birth certificate and all this other stuff. And, moving into a typical American state, which is, I'm the victim, right? And now I'm going to fight you and I'm going to make you pay, which is like everybody gets in common law. Everybody gets excited about these notices and threatening people, basically. Yeah. So you get involved with that, and then, it does absolutely nothing. Like that agency just might back off of you a little bit because they realize you're more like a beehive, and they tap the beehive and the bees got crazy and tried to attack them. So they'll back off. But, right. I think getting out of this whole emotional, victimization is really important in order to actually move forward with doing like copywriting and trademarking. It's really interesting too, because I was kind of talking to you about Catherine, but she was helping a guy who they took his daughter, right? Mm-hmm. And like she's in this facility, and they're having a hard time trying to get out. And she, did the common law trademark on her. Copyright. So now I realize why they just looked at the paperwork and threw it to the side. And then we talked about it, and you said, well, it's property, the property, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to do the trademark to get the property back underneath,
But you're not pulling a trademark, though. All you're doing is claiming your. Here's the beautiful part about that Paris Convention, the Industrial Properties Convention. It's Article 8. Underneath Article 8, our trade name, our capitalized trade name, not trademark, trade name, is protected as an unregistered trademark from deceptors and from I forgot the language they use offhand, from infringement and whatnot. Now, here's the beautiful thing about constitutional rights. People spend a lot of time arguing about constitutional rights and general assemblies and all these things, right? And certainly case law, and you've seen the affidavits. I've written the affidavits too in the past with all this case law, and we don't need to do any of that. We don't have to do any of it. You know why? Because here's the thing: everything is generated in the hub of patents, trademarks, and copyrights. So what they've done here in every single one of their agreements, and you got to remember, everything that you look at, everything you see around you right now, if you look around you, everything that you see material and immaterial and not intangible, started out as what? A patent. Started as an idea. And every one of those patents has what attached to it? An attorney attached to it. Okay? And so what they're doing is in their contracts that nobody sees, that's more important than the patent itself and more important than the trademark itself, it is the agreements that attach to it. And every one of these agreements, every single one is built upon the original pledge, the Merz Nations Bank Agreement that was imposed upon us, that says and acknowledges, like I said earlier, that you're as the grantor, you are the owner of all rights, title, and interest. It's yours, but for the fact that you pledged it to us. Okay, now that agreement builds off of each other. Then you've got reaffirmation agreements and confirmation agreements and reaffirmation agreements of the same damn thing, referencing back to that same pledge that we never gave. Okay, so all the evidence is right there in patents and trademarks. And so what they're doing is they're directing what they being these patent attorneys and the banks and whoever the trademark owner is, Litton, Aquin, whomever, they're directing the Commissioner of Patents and Trademarks how to make these recordings. And so within these agreements, like I said, they acknowledge the fact that we're their owners, but for the fact that we gave it. So they're directing the Commissioner of Patents and Trademarks to make the necessary recordings to government record and to the records and registers of patents and trademarks. Well, all we have to do is we unwind it. All we got to do is say, no, I never did that. I didn't do that. That was imposed upon me, and it's indisputably rebuttable because I got the proof that my derivative name was stolen from me by deceptive trade practices, which is that Merged Nations Bank agreement. And so it's indisputably rebuttable, and I need you, the Commissioner of Patents and Trademarks, to make the proper corrections. I don't even have to mention constitutional rights. That's beautiful, isn't it?
Right, because it's not personal. It's business.
Right. We don't have to argue the point. You know why? Because when you understand patents and trademarks, when you make that filing, you understand that there is no law. All law is ambiguous. All these things they call codes and statutes, bullshit. These are business models for law firms in the business of banking. They are that are decomposed, and all law is based on the capricious whim of the schemes of foreign agent law firms and the business of banking. And they create these schemes and these ideas and these conjured up concoctions, this metaphysics, phantasms and ontologies and whatever you want to call them, these fictional stories, which are fictional stories, but they're fictional stories in the sense that they're abstractions. Like I said earlier, they're not going to say Kenneth Dost is the stockholder of GM. They're not going to do that. It's done through articles of incorporation and as industrial property, as an abstracted image, so to speak. So but when you know all this stuff, you realize, wait a second here. So you've concocted a patent that takes my name and creates all kinds of bonds and notes and separately managed accounts and all these other things. It strips it away from me, and I don't know about this stuff. And you take hostage of my name and so on and so forth. Then you come out in public as a legal practitioner and you want to prosecute me for default. Fuck you, pardon my French. That's not law. That's treason. That's treason, and it's proven upon the embodiment of patents and trademarks. When you understand that they're making stuff up as they go along, and they're not just doing it in your state, they're crossing all kinds of jurisdictional boundaries. I mean, imagine for a second, you got your land, okay? I have 5 acres here, okay? I own the water rights. I own the timber rights. I own all the equitable rights because I developed this thing from scratch. Me and Michelle did, okay? I own the plans. I designed the plans. They not only stole that from me and stole that off, they took this property, they created mineral rights, they created air rights, they sectioned it up in all different chunks and pieces and created all kinds of notes and deeds and all kinds of things off of it. And they took it and they just kind of just threw it up in the air and let it blow to the four corners of the world. Well, wait a second here. That's on my equity. So you want to come after me on a foreclosure and a default on that one little piece that you're saying that I defaulted on? I don't think so. Because my equity is in Luxembourg, it's in Belgium, it's in England, it's everywhere but here where you're trying to prosecute me. So screw you. There is no law. You're committing treason. And it's provable upon patents and trademarks. That's the beauty of this stuff.
When was so you've done a lot of this stuff. Right now you're in the final stages, right? You have some paperwork that you just put in that you're waiting to get finalized. And so, I mean, like, what was there a moment when you filed, a paperwork that you were just blown away with what you got, or that you got a response? I mean, what was the realized?
I was blown away when I filed my first trademark documents a couple months ago. And when I got a message 10 days later that they reviewed it and they registered it. And I go to the USTPO and pull up trademarks, pull up Kenneth Dost, and there's my name. Now my name's attached to United States Patent and Trademark Office. Not as a trademark, okay? Not as a trademark, but as an individual owner of that trade name. And I was blown away by that. I thought, oh, yes. this is it. This is cool. It felt very good because I knew I had them. I knew I had them because I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong on any of this stuff. And you know, now what I filed is a patent, and the patent that I filed basically what is, and I'm not going to go into details about the paperwork because you have to learn all this stuff before you can do the paperwork. But basically what it is basically saying, okay, I'm going to merge Kenneth W. Dost, capitalized meaning, not defined herein, as defined by the terms and conditions within the agreements. I'm sorry, how's it go again? Capitalized meanings not defined herein are defined by the terms and conditions of the agreements to and into which capitalized trade name was incorporated by reference. That's a mouthful. But what does it say? That says that because I cannot say that Kenneth W. Dost is a corporation, I can't say that it's a business unless I have it actually registered as a business or corporation. That's violates federal law. Even though in the state of Pennsylvania, they can go ahead and infer that Kenneth W. Dost is a corporation, an LLC, a sole proprietorship, anything that they want it to be, right? Because it's a Commonwealth state. But I can't do that. Okay, so how do they get around? They have that same problem though too with their agreements. How do they get around that? By the definition I just gave you. Capitalized meaning not defined herein, et cetera, et cetera. So I did that as a transfer, as the assigner, and then I did as a transferee, or the assignee, Kenneth William Dost. So I merged Kenneth W. Dost into, like I said, with the capitalized meaning, you know, that long iteration I gave you. The same thing with Kenneth William Dost, with the surviving entity and emerging entity being what? Kenneth Dost, upper lowercase Kenneth, Dost, all uppercase. That's the new name. So I merged it together. So what happened? What I do by doing that? What I do? I took away. First of all, I killed off all intermediaries, unauthorized, unwanted pirates and thieves. Right? Because what I do, I merged it. I took away their power. Number one. Number two, I made it so that I am by merging the name, by merging body and soul together. What I've done is I've given myself a physical existence as a man, as an individual personality. People talk about, oh, I'm a sentient man and I'm not a person. Yes, you are a person. You know, you've got to accept the fact that we are persons. That's part of what makes us a man or a woman. That's part of what makes us gives us a physical existence. You know, it's one thing to go through life, you know, happy on your land and your community, you know, and oblivious to the fact that you've got this thing out there. Okay, that's not. In my opinion, that's not what God intended for us. God created us with a body and soul to show that we have power out there. There's a part of us that's out there that is the energy for all these things. And to me, the purpose of our life is to find out what that meaning is, what that thing is, to how it relates to us. And so you have to recognize the fact that yes, there are these phantasms. People call them fictions. I call them phantasms. There are these phantasms out there of people that are imitating us or pretending to be us and all these things. We have to accept that, okay? We have to accept that, yes, that's true, okay? But that's not me. That was somebody else. But it is my property. Because it wouldn't exist if I didn't give my first press to it. So it is mine. So what we need to do is we need to resolve those things. And the best way to resolve those things is saying, like I said earlier, you know, a lot of people get arrested because they're doing things with the birth certificate and putting it in public records and going after liens and stuff and judges and stuff. You know, don't do that stuff, okay? What they did is they took your public personality into their private. Your public personality is you. That's you. If you have freedoms and liberties, then don't mess around with my public personality. But that's exactly what they did, isn't it? Patents are supposed to be for the good of humanity, are they not? They're not. The patents have been utilized for the good of attorneys and the business of banking and control, because that's where our freedoms were taken from us. So you have every right to go after that public person and say, that's mine. You took what is mine, and I want it back. And so by merging it, what you're saying is you're doing two things. First of all, by doing a trademark, you're giving yourself an existence. Why? Because the government knows you as the all-capitalized name, as a non-human, not a decedent, okay? Get the word decedent out of your head, okay? You're a non-human, meaning that there's an attachment to a living body out there somewhere, but we can't find it. Why can't we find it? Because some damn attorney's got in the way of it. They're playing games with me, and they won't let me reattach it together, and, you know, they're pulling me into court, and I was dumb enough to go into court because I didn't understand what's going on, you know, but now we know these things, you know. Now we have the power in patents and trademarks, because patents and trademarks is not civil law. It's a different body of law. Okay, and when you make a claim, or when you take, let's say a claim, let's say when you do a filing for a change of name or correction of name, what you're saying is hey, you see that Kenneth W. Dostock, the one that's floating around, and all over the place and just in different places, that's mine. Okay, and I'm the individual, the living body that belongs to that thing, and I'm gonna claim that as mine. And by doing that, what have we done? By doing that, we've given ourselves an existence on the governmental records. It's called the authorized historical database in trademarks, which means, guess what? Now we've been given an existence. Now we have an physical existence as a man or a woman. Okay, now we're an individual personality. Why? Because we've exercised our rights and we've come into an understanding of what that thing is out there. Nobody can mess with us on that. Nobody. And then by doing that, by the operation of law, all title, all license reverts back to the original copyright holder, which is who? Kenneth William Dost. So these are, and this is not legal advice. Okay, just so that somebody becomes, one of these days somebody's probably going to accuse me of giving legal advice, and my defense is very clear. There is no legal advice because we're not talking legal here, because these are just business methods that are rigged in patents and trademarks. So there's no legal here.
Yeah, there's no legal or law or any of that. It's energy and the written word and ways that energy is utilized and expressed.
Right. Right, and we just have to. I don't want to say everybody's wrong out there. And I've come across, and I've come out harshly with people for that. And that was wrong of me. I mean, I was trying to play tough love essentially, because I'm afraid that people that are coming into this newly coming into this, because I've seen them come in droves now. I have a foreclosure. What do I do? So these are new people coming in. I don't want these new people to be captured. And that's the wrong word, to be influenced by other well-meaning people out there that are very well-meaning, okay? They believe in what they're doing. They believe that what they're talking about is correct. And in another era, they certainly were correct. But things have changed. Things are different now. And to get trapped into this filing affidavit here and there and doing all these other things, it's not going to help you. I don't care what you do. It's not going to help you. The only place that you can be helped, the only place that you can help yourself is in patents and trademarks. You have to give yourself an existence. And that's not by claiming that's not by taking the trademark or making yourself a trademark, because you're not Gloria Vanderbilt unless you are a Gloria Vanderbilt. You're a consumer. You are a whole individual. So in trademark, what you're doing is you're giving yourself an existence. In patent, what you're doing by the merger, you're saying, guess what? You SOBs, you can't patent me. You can't patent nature, because I'm the most perfect being that there is, even though I'm imperfect. But in God's eyes, I'm the most perfect being there is, because that's how I was created. That's how I was created. You cannot patent nature. So what happens now? Now you've self-ejected yourself from commerce, have you not? And that's the whole point here. So then what you do is all the stocks and all the shit that's out there, I don't want it. Why would I want it? I know it's crooked. I know that these things were done by, shady means and capricious whim. I don't want any of it. I'm going to give it to Treasury. I'm going to give it to them. You audit it. You do what you want with it. But in return, I want the value of credit, because I've prima facie upon the embodiment of patents and trademarks, and I can say the 500 pages of following the actual chain of title, not in the county where you think it's at, but in patents and trademarks where it actually is. That proves that my trade name is invaluable. So I'll take the credit of that. You can have all the stocks and bonds. You can do all that stuff with that. And guess what? Now that I've taken charge of that, I'm giving you the authority to go after these sons of bitches and prosecute them. Because that's another thing. That's why FBI, they can't go after these guys. DOJ can't go after these people because we don't have a standing until we get rid of that intermediary, which is the attorneys. Now, once we get rid of that, now we can go ahead and trademarks, that we have the authority, all lawful authority, to assign it to whoever we want to. Okay, well, I'm going to assign it to Treasury. Go after these guys. Audit them now. What have I done? I've helped bring down the debt a little bit, and I've given them, the government, the authority to go after the trillions of dollars. Well, if we all do this, the trillions and trillions of dollars that have been extorted out of this country from the good people of this country by these attorneys. That's how we get these guys. That's how we get them.
Hey,
so when you look at,
yeah.
Go ahead.
So, hold on a second. And then I'm going to put my email address in the public chat. But so one of the people, they were saying, oh, so how can you, get this trademark work and stuff like that? And so you need to hire a trademark attorney. I'm like, no, did you hear anything he said? You can't trust the attorneys. They're not going to be able to help you unravel what's been done to you. So
and a lot of these attorneys don't even know what's going on. They really don't. The only ones that really, this is a Manhattan Project, okay? And how's the atomic bomb built? It was built by a bunch of contractors. Not one of the other contractors knew what the other one was even doing or what they were even working on, right? It's the same thing with this. It's only the people, only the very, 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 very few people know exactly what's going on here. But when you're an attorney, you're taking orders from who? The bar, right? The American Bar Association, the British Bar. So you're hoodwinked with them. And if you try to do, we've seen it a million times. If an attorney tries to do good by his client, what happens to the attorney? Usually he gets disbarred, or usually what happens is he suddenly ups and walks off the case, right? That of the person that he's helping. So attorneys can't help us here. We can't have attorneys involved in this because they're the intermediary, and that's what's keeping us in Commonwealth. We don't want to be a part of this. We don't want to be a part of the civil authority that look at it this way. There was a coup d'etat. Okay, the Patents and Trademarks was a silent coup d'etat that set up that Merrill Lynch intended to crash the economy by patents and in collusion with Goldman Sachs. This is provable. If one of these days when DOJ finally looks at this stuff by doing what I'm doing here, which kind of forces them and allows them to audit these patents, there's going to be hell to pay because they're going to realize, holy shit, he was right. The economy was totally set up to fail by Merrill Lynch and the banks. They staged the whole thing. They wanted it to fail, okay? And so the only way to show that is to actually show it. We don't have standing in court, right? The court's crooked. It's Admiralty Maritime, and they're on the court's payroll, and besides, you're just a deadbeat liar and a cheat, right? Well, when you're standing on patents and trademarks, you're like, guess what, Judge? You have no authority now, because who's the only competent jurisdiction? The only competent jurisdiction is the person who knows all the knowledge, right? Who knows how this thing works and understands how this thing works, right? We have the competent jurisdiction. We're the only competent jurisdiction. You have to do this yourself. You cannot do it for 10 people. You cannot do it for 100 people. Each person has to do this for themselves. They have to. Because it's your existence.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of interesting because, there's some people that are having like a really hard time in my different chats about what we're talking about because they're saying, well, it's imaginary, but I don't think that they were really listening from the beginning of the call. So, it's not imaginary. But
no. Stop for a second. They're right. It is imaginary. It's absolutely imaginary, but it's not a fiction. If it was a fiction, it would not affect your life. This affects our life, so it's very much a reality.
All of your life because everything that you sign for or you get an account number for that you're utilizing in the system is based on your birth certificate, your all caps name, which is patent copied and trademarked,
and the imposed pledge.
Yeah, and then bonds and your insurance. So you have a driver's license, that's all caps name. So yeah, so there's the thing is like somebody keeps asking me what the steps are, and the thing is like I keep saying that's why we're teaching a class because we're going to be teaching the class on how people can understand this stuff so that they can go in and look because there isn't anybody else who's done this.
No, they don't teach this stuff in school. This is stuff.
No,
this is
there
stuff
isn't anywhere that you can go. They're asking me for like YouTube videos of people who've done it, and it's like, no, there isn't anyone else who's done this. You're the only one that has gone down. How many years you been at it? 20 some odd years?
No, not 20. No, God, I pray.
11 at least.
Actually, 19 years. 19 years.
Okay,
total.
but this is all you've done this whole time is like. Pretty much travel down all these things, file different paperwork to see what sticks, what works, and then find it.
I had an advantage. One, I believe I was blessed by God. Number one, but number two is before all this happened, I just lived my life. I wasn't involved in any kind of politics or any kind of discussions about constitutional rights. I just lived my life. I was one of the incompetent boobs. I was just living my life, thinking I was doing good and thinking I was exercising my freedoms and liberties. So when this happened to me, and I realized the fact, wait a second here, you did this to me. U.S. Bank did this to me. I didn't do anything. Or they're willing to screw up my credit. That's what pissed me off and got me angry. And because I was in architecture, that gives me an advantage because I have a visual mind. That helps me. But also, too, I had pulled a provisional patent years ago on for a prefabricated architectural style doghouse, that I had designed. And so when I pulled this provisional patent, and after the stuff started happening, I came across some words that rang a bell with me, and the words were inure to the benefit. And I thought, where the hell did I see that before? And I realized it was in patent. That's what got me on patents. So I was directed into patents in that way. So in that respect, I guess I came into this as a virgin, meaning I didn't have any preconceived notions about government or the Constitution or anything. So I think I had an advantage with that, But I see what people need to do here. I see that people are stuck into this fiction and this that's theirs, not our thing. We've got to shed that. We've got to take that and reach into our mind and grab that stuff and pull off the stuff and throw it away. Because it's not that it's wrong. It's wrong. It's a wrong view of it. We've got to get a proper view of what we're actually looking at here. And when we do that, I promise you, when you Sandy Smith, I'm sure she won't mention her name. Sandy Smith, I showed Sandy Smith how to navigate this stuff within patents and trademarks, and how to navigate these agreements. And she, every time I talk to her, she goes, "Thanks, Ken, I'm addicted now," because she is addicted. Because she sees and she understands it, and it goes on forever and ever. It's not a rabbit hole. Rabbit holes go nowhere. This stuff always goes somewhere. Okay,
and that's the thing is that whenever you, because you don't file in court, right? You file with the different offices that and you're rebutting it. You're saying, look, I've noticed that, this, person is on this trademark, blah, 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 or copyright or whatever. And this is not correct information. And I ask you to, look at this paperwork that proves blah, 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 that, this is not accurate information.
Right,
and then you get a response back saying, okay, well.
And look at it this way. Think of yourself as Paul McCartney. And every time that a Beatles record plays, you get like a quarter of a penny. It's the same damn thing here. It's royalties. Every time that your name is used, every time your name is put as a customer list, every time anything is used, it is recorded. The rights to who gets that nickel or whatever it's going to be is where? In patents and trademarks. That directs the flow of where the royalties and the monies and the funds and the bonds and everything goes, because it's all created there.
Well, this is the problem. Okay, so it's kind of interesting because listening to several different kind of chat feeds that I have going on that I'm looking at it. And so I'm kind of thinking, I have a better way to gear these 4 weeks of classes, because if people are awake and understand that they have a cap name, right, but maybe haven't done the common law paperwork or have done the common law paperwork or whatever else, they're still stuck in that because they want to get rid of their driver's license, and they want to get rid of paying for car fees and all this other stuff, when they don't really understand that, like, the whole, process here. And that, the companies have used your name, there's QSIP numbers, and, you're trafficked all over. So what you're talking about is that we go after the actual copyrights, patents, and trademarks, and we let them know, hi, this information is not correct. By the way, I'm actually a human and I'm living on the land, and I would like to take possession. I'm notifying you that I am taking possession of my vessel, and I would like to also let you know that I'm going to control all these things. So I don't have to surrender. I don't have to surrender my driver's license, because that's part of who I am now, right?
Well, let me read you what I wrote, because that's going to put some more perspective. It's a couple paragraphs. Let me read what I wrote here. I said, this merger and change of name requires immediate attention and actions by the Commissioner of Patents, with the duty to secure the undersigned's freedoms and liberties from the enemies of liberties and freedoms, with immediate protected transport and passage into permanent safe harbor, and all necessary acts thereto. This includes actions by government liaisons from various government agencies, departments, and bureaus, including but not exclusive only to, the Undersecretary of Commerce for Intellectual Property and Director of the United States Patent and Trademarks Office, Andre Iancu. For complete audit, balance, and offsets, United States Department of Treasury, Steve Mnuchin. Bureau of Fiscal Services, Kim McCoy. Office of Comptroller, Currency, Internal Revenue Service for exempt status. The following agencies for securing certificates of ownership, titles, satisfaction, licenses, private citizens, American national status issues and diplomatic status passport issues, private motor carrier driver's licenses, termination of futures commission brokers and reversions, cancellation of bonds and warrants, etc. The National Vessel Documentation Center, the United States Coast Guard, the United States Customs, Department of Homeland Security, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association, Department of Labor, Department of Agriculture, Department of Transportation, Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, Federal Railroad Administration, Maritime Administration, Department of Health and Human Services, National Institute of Health and Securities and Exchange Commission, and others that are not listed here. These are all issues that are all derived from and out of patents and trademarks, and I put it on your authority to cure these things and to procure the proper licenses and documents and so on and so forth. That's what I wrote.
Yeah, and so the thing is like you're reclaiming every possible avenue that they would have created as an offshoot of you, right?
Yes. Yes.
And attached onto you through your entire life.
Yes.
And you're notifying them, then at the next process, once this comes back and they say, okay, here's all the paperwork and documentation for that, then you'll say, okay, now this is what I want. I want an open credit line.
Here's what I wrote on that. I'll tell you what I wrote on that. What I wrote on that, I said, it being well understood that Kenneth W. Dost, as the real and true assignee, is the actual real and true beneficiary of corporate bonds, municipal bonds, treasury notes, treasury bills, zero coupon bonds, money market instruments, bankers' acceptances, commercial papers, certificates of deposits, letters of credit, marketable securities, domestic fixed income and domestic equity, equity inverse assets, precious metal assets, commodities and hard assets, international equity, international fixed income, municipal bonds, and a stockholder in many corporations, patents and trademarks, of which Kenneth W. Dost is the assigner, all caps, is the assigner and co-owner of all rights, title, and interest, but for the imposed pledge and false presumptions, said pledge and false presumptions being and having been rebutted forthwith. Be it understood that it is not the intention of the undersigned to dissent or to sow discord, especially in these times of economic turmoil with this pandemic going on. Rather, it is by this merger and change of name that I am authorizing the transfer of the entire portfolio of assets in good faith with the goodwill of the undersigned to the United States Department of Treasury for their audit and ongoing administration with fiduciary to the undersigned, who do so in good faith and with the goodwill of the undersigned. We perform these acts in the capacity of the real and true principals and owners with the expectations that the same be returned to us, insofar as they are an invaluable credit of our energy. That's what I wrote. That's a mouthful. But what I said there is basically, listen, I'm giving you the whole freaking portfolio. I don't want this mess. You've had this mess. I'm not qualified to go through this stuff. I don't have the technological know-how because there's so many damn patents out there. I'm a disabled entity. I'm disadvantaged by this whole system that's in place that you guys got a 20-year head start on, right? And there's no way in the world I'm going to compete with a system that I know is corrupt and crooked and run by foreign agent attorneys who have totally enslaved my freedoms and liberties. So I'm going to give it all to you. I just want the return of credit. That's all I want. It's perfectly just. It's a very good deal for Treasury. They get billions of dollars. I mean, how much am I going to spend in the rest of my lifetime? I don't want to form trust or anything. Why do I have to do that? If I can secure the credit, if I secure then valuable my credit and do so for my kid and my beneficiaries, I'm good. I don't want to manage trust and stuff because then I'm back in the shit with these guys.
Right, but think about how many, so in America, how many generations have you had in your family on both sides in America?
Oh, yes. Well, let's see, that would be my great-grandfather, which came here. He was a World War I veteran and a hero. So he came over here in 1890-something.
So basically...
It goes back to that. It goes all the way back to that, And here's
So
here's
basically, you're the benefit, but this is the thing, because they didn't claim theirs. You're the benefit. You're
Right.
the legal beneficiary of all the money that they made on those people.
Yes, and why is that? Why is that? Because the all capitalized name, it lives in perpetuity. Once it's created, how will we remember that after we die? You go to a graveyard, you see the all capitalized name there. The memory of our life is through that capitalized trade name. That's why we live in perpetuity, right? Because we never claimed that name when our parents passed. We took the Social Security benefits and all that crap, right? But we did not know about the true value of the intellectual properties, which is the value of the name, and as a non-human factor of production, which is ours, that wouldn't exist if we didn't first give breath to it. It's very simple. When you get down to it, it's very, very simple. It's just hard to grasp the concept of it. It takes a while to grasp the concept of it, and you're going to have to dump a lot of stuff that you knew. And for some people, it's going to be very hard to do because they're so.
Well, we're victims. We're codependent.
No, don't say victims. We're not victims. We're not victims.
But that's the whole thing, is like what you're doing. Like, if you do the common law and you try to become a national and you try to extract yourself out of the system, which, I've done all this stuff. It doesn't work, by the way.
No, it doesn't.
And if you have any kind of situation, and this is the thing, is like, I haven't gone where Ken's gone, but I'm gonna be going where Ken's gone. But the stuff that I have utilized, because I didn't want to utilize other paperwork, that I didn't really want to look up. I didn't want to do, extract myself completely out, because like I didn't want to have to give up my all cap stuff, right? And
right.
I just had this thing inside of me, like, well, like I have to choose either be in a worse condition or deal with the system. And so I always thought that there was something like in between, right? There was a bridge, there was a place. So one of the things that I did was created a trust, that my all cap trust, right? More of the, there's another type of legal process that I use, which is a languaging thing. And so I made a trust for my capital name, and I made myself the original depositor, upper and lower case, and all these different kinds of things. It goes on for a few pages. Then power of attorney document to represent that trust, and then also, made my upper and lower case person the trustee. But it has actually worked. Huh? Well, yeah.
Have you got anything out of it?
Well, I haven't got any money out of it or anything else like that.
Why? Okay, now answer that question. Why haven't you? Tell me why.
Well, because I didn't undo my patents, copyrights, and trademarks.
Yes. Right. That's
getting them back under me.
You didn't take back. You didn't kill off those powers of attorney, which could only be done in patents and trademarks.
Yeah. But what I have, it has worked. That trust has worked when I gave it to my bank, and my bank doesn't screw with me anymore. Like now, if there's a problem with my account, one of the bankers calls me, and there's like very little money in there. So it did change something. I gave it to PayPal, and PayPal now no longer, messes with me or screws with me. So, I have given, different.
Yeah, but they are screwing and messing with you. They're draining you. That's what they're doing.
Well, yeah, but now it's like, now I've got to move on to the next level, which is, securing my value that's been created. And so, I'm really excited about, a lot of this stuff. And more of an unraveling and untangling. That's kind of how I look at myself now. I'm not looking at myself as a lost at sea vessel, and I've got to take a boat out there, and I've got to, have somebody put in a new battery and all this other stuff. But now I'm looking at more like.
You got to understand it, but you got to understand that philosophy, though. You got to understand the backstory.
Oh yeah, no, I get that. But now I feel like I'm more of untangling myself from a net. And when you untangle something from a net, it can take a long time. You got to cut pieces of that net. You got to pull that net off because it's like strangulating whatever it is.
And you're right. All those agencies that I read to you. Now, I could have gone through and I could do this individually. If I were to do this individually, I have to go through each one of those agencies. And I tell you, there's a lot of shitload of paperwork to sign. And I came to the decision, and I came to the conclusion, you know what? I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do this stuff. It's enough that I understand the backstory of this stuff, that I can talk intelligently about it, and I know that the whole damn system's crooked and crooked, and it's set up that way. It's necessary what they're doing, but it's not transparent, and it was taken hostage and taking me hostage. You fix it now, because this is one nation under God. I don't care what constitution or whatever these other people are talking about. This is still one nation under God, and what you did was you separated me by unauthorized pledge, because that pledge was unauthorized. My parents didn't have the know-how of what they were doing. They weren't given that information. So we're going to undo that, and you have the duty to undo that, because this is one nation under God. That's where I'm going to hold you to your oath. And that's where we got them.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing, too, is, like, we don't have to take it personally. Like, a lot of the stuff, like talking to you is just, I've worked through, like, the last year of having you on and off my radio show, having you on and talking to you personally is really, it's taught me on a very important thing. And that has been watching myself through my life in a constant, not that I'm constantly defensive, but I'm constantly being put in situations where I think the natural response is to defend myself. That's kind of what I've been trained to do in the system. I get pulled over by the cops. I'm all of a sudden immediately irritated.
Yeah.
Right? I'm already preparing myself
you got to ask
to
yourself,
defend
are they really the bad guy here? Not really. They're just doing what they believe to be true.
Right. So a lot of this has helped me to, like, lower that defense and not defend myself so much, but to look at it more in a multi-dimensional way. So I can figure out what the cop's deal is, what he's involved in, and what I'm involved in, and maybe why I'm getting pulled over. Also looking at the documentation, taking a look at all this stuff, and then seeing the lines that play out from that moment.
Yeah.
And where it goes.
Now, there is people who are responsible, and that's these attorneys. The attorneys are. MERS is probably perhaps the most evil act that's ever been perpetrated against humanity, because it's long. It's a very small thing, really. All MERS really is the gateway into this theft of our identity. But I tell you, it's the biggest evil that's ever been perpetrated, and the attorneys are guilty of this. So I do. I don't talk against the government so much, because I think they need to be educated. I think they were just as deceived as we are, as the common person out here is. But it's the attorneys. The government was not the smartest person in the room. It was the attorneys and their lobbyists that were the smartest people in the room, and they outdid government. Why? Because they run the patents. And they're the ones and the ABA is the one that built the electronic systems that overlay the court system, So, and that's where the debentures are, that the judges and the judicial system is in bed with England and Wales. It's all in patents and trademarks. It's all organized by these damn attorneys. Now, that's not saying that they're all bad. I'm not saying that they're all bad. A lot of them don't even know what's going on. They're taking their orders from the ABA, and a lot of the attorneys have no clue what I'm even talking about. And I've talked to one, there's an attorney up in Wisconsin that I talked to, and she said, no, that's not true. That's not true. I said, it is. I said, the Fannie and Freddie documents and unimpeachable contract. Where does that say that? I've never seen that before. And as I talked to her, she was combative with me for a while, but as I talked to her, she finally realized that, oh, my God, he's right. So I've woken up some attorneys' eyes. There's a lot of people that don't know about this stuff. Why? Because it was done at the inception, quietly, by an automated process that we don't see unless you go to patents to really see it. That's what undoes it. That's where the aha moments come in. It's like, well, wait a second here. Wait a minute. How the hell do I have all these assets over in Luxembourg? And they're foreclosing upon me? What? No, that ain't going to happen. But you got to go there to understand it. You got to put the attention there and focus. See, my thing is, I believe that the world's out of control. It really is out of control. If we don't do something about it real quick, it's going to be we're in drastic trouble, especially with this coronavirus and all the things that are spinning off of this thing. All the rights and all the just everything. It's going down a very bad path. But you know what? We do have power. Our power is in understanding who we are and understanding where to focus our attention and focus our energies. It's not the court system. It is not spinning bias and hate about the corporations this and corporations that. You know what? Embrace the corporation, because we are the stockholders of that corporation. If we want to change things, then it's time to take account for it. That's the way I look at it.
This is the biggest thing that I learned with common law. And in all of this, is that we are personally responsible, right? And it is up to us to have due diligence. And, it was kind of interesting because I was thinking a couple weeks ago after I had a conversation with a friend of mine, we're close to this coming to an end, but, and we were talking about how, all of this stuff that is going on right now has to do with pressure, but it being put on people, not the system, but the system that the people are in, right? And like almost like it's like a karmic cycle of, are you going to wake up or are you not? And so, I've been reading a lot of Rudolf Steiner this last winter, and some really awesome work is Karma of Untruthfulness that he wrote. The first one was written right about after World War I. And he talks about how all the lies and the deception and everything that we're in, we're constantly lying ourselves, and we live in untruthfulness, which creates karma, right? It has a reaction, cause and a reaction. And that, everything that we're living in right now is almost like on a spiritual level, the system is pushing us into a position to like wake up or take us out, because we cannot have spiritual evolution. We're not going to evolve on this planet if people can't wake up and take personal responsibility.
That's why MERS is the most evil thing. That's why MERS and these attorneys that engineered this thing have perpetrated the biggest evil upon this world. Is because they've really derailed all kinds of all spiritual awakening. Really, they really have. They've commandeered it, and they've put us off on a different trail. That is a rabbit hole, which is down this path of thinking that everything is hunky-dory as it's always been. And we fell for it.
Yeah.
And now it's time to say, nah, you got me once, you're not going to get me again.
Yeah. Well, and that's it. So, hey, so Ken, I'm so glad that you could come on the show. I've got about 2 minutes here, or 1 minute. But I just want to mention, it's been Karen Stone's Digging Holes radio show. I'm your host at Bridget Dolgoff. Guest has been Ken Doss. It's been great. And we're going to be doing a class together for 4 weeks. The class is free. We are asking for donations. And, watch my website. I'll put it up as a blog once we get the date together. We're going to do it on a Thursday. It's going to be sooner than later. And my website is coe-llc.com. You can watch there, or you can send me an email, consciousnessofelconomics@gmail.com. And I'll be more than happy to put in the subject line, Ken class, kind of a thing, and then I'm not going to read the body of the email. So if you guys send me long emails, I'm not going to be able to respond, but I will send you the link to the class, and then you can go ahead, and it'll be on Zoom, and then I'll record the class, and it'll go up onto Patreon, and then people can find it there. But that's kind of like what we're doing. So anyway, everybody, thanks so much for listening. I've got 2 more shows left after this one. And yeah, it's been good. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Hey, Ken, are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay.
That went well.